We are here today at part 2 of the Wednesday webinars for the LSTA Grants Workshop. And today we are going to be focusing on the evaluation component of the LSTA application. And I am the LSTA coordinator, Diane Baker, here to roll out the webinar and also available to you for input, to answer questions, to provide some consultation as might help you along so you can get to an end product of LSTA grant application that is competitive for the amount of money that we do get for this program each year. So let's get going here today. I'll just do a really quick review of what we did last time around, take a look at the application, and get to the part we're going to focus on today, evaluation. Especially the focus is outcomes-based evaluation and the steps in order to get there. We'll have Q&A, although I do encourage you as we are going through the program, if you have any questions, please be sure to ask them as we go. There may be others that have the exact same question or have something related to it, so I'm happy to answer the questions when we are in that section. Or if something does pop up later on, I do have landing slides throughout that have question marks on it that we can take a moment for any questions at that point or at the very end as well. Okay, so where we're at, this is the Library Services and Technology Act. You definitely hear me say LSTA all the time. And it is a state-based program. We have a specific program we are working in with our funding that is called Grants to the States, and it's to all 50 states and the territories that are under the protection of the United States. It's funded annually by Congress, so it's not forward funded. We wait for the budget every single year to find out what has been allocated for this part of the program and then ultimately what rolls out to each state. The applications are due Wednesday, November 12th, one electronic by email, which would be in Word format. You can also send me a PDF, but I do need the one in Word as well. And a hard copy with signatures does need to be mailed in to my attention. In the first round, we went over the overall application, the need, target, audience, and the plans that you were going to be tying into your program. The final webinar is next Wednesday, October 15th. That's the last of our Wednesday webinars for the grant writing assistance. So where we've been, check it off. We've talked about the DUNS number, applicant information, email address, definitely primary, the first one you put there is the first person I will be contacting. And the LSTA amounts, number of persons served. We talked about the unique definition that comes to us from IMLS, which is the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Other things that we've already covered, definitely. Need an opportunity, target audience, the benefits to the target audience, and the LSTA goals and planning documents that you will use. So those parts of the application were covered in part 1. There's also left to discuss the implementation, evaluation is today, and the budget and budget narrative, finally the timeline. And you notice the top one that is listed there, the abstract. I do cover that in the final webinar, and that's because the abstract is best written after you have really completed the whole application. So as I promised, I have my questions landing pages. This is the first, just as a point of where we have been. And let's plow on. So, evaluation. One of the keys to our program, and it is actually a really important part on the federal level. They use the evaluation and information that we provide to them as justification for the program to continue on. What does this look like in the competitive application here? you will see the image from the application where you see describing the evaluation method and measures, and you have up to 2 pages. You can add an additional page beyond the single page here. You don't have to if you can completely describe your evaluation program, but you can use up to 2 in this particular segment. And if you're with a mini grant, then you see there the smaller F section describe the measures to be used to evaluate this project. This one can expand if you need to. Most mini projects can get the information that they're going to use for evaluation in this amount of space. However, if you need additional space, this section can expand if you need to. Okay, so I had mentioned we use outcome-based evaluation. This is the program that is endorsed from the federal level, especially IMLS, but it's not just the Institute of Museums and Library Services. This is pervading many, many parts of the federal government that makes funding available for different kinds of projects. So really this came back into play with the GRPA, the Government Performance and Results Act of 1993, updated in 2000. And that is in 2000, the funding, the federal act that was updated with that used the term that all public dollars are spent well. So that's the goal of the evaluation component of all of the programs that are funded by the federal government. Outcome-based evaluation found its start in the United Way in 1995 with a focus on measuring effect, going for service quality and impact. And as we're going on, let's take a little bit more about outcome-based evaluation, what it is about and what it isn't about. It is about identifying effective programming, also how the projects will make a difference for the end users, and it is the support for the institution to show good stewardship, also for transparency. And transparency has become a bit more important catchphrase, or of bigger importance on the federal level. You will hear that coming from a lot of different federal agencies about transparency in funding that is used not only on the federal level, but also in grants and contracts. So outcome-based evaluation, it's not about just the process. It's not necessarily about efficiency, or if the staff has done accomplished certain tasks. Some of these things can be part of building to an outcome-based type of evaluation, but it's not simply about those things. So why do we do it? Because it works with our granting program. It directly links to the need or needs that have been identified within the application. And it helps demonstrate that the project or program that you are recommending for funding will make a difference. It's a way to show that you have made a difference. For further programming after, whether you are hoping to take this on to your own funders, this gives you the basis, the information, it's evidence-based that shows that a project is worthy of funding, continued as well. And more grantors, not just the federal government, you will be finding more and more grantors are looking for this type of information in the evaluation component of application. So I promised that there were 4 steps that we're going to use to get to your outcome style evaluation for the LSTA application. So the 4 steps that we will be using will be that we're forming the evaluation, defining some goals and objectives. Some of those things you've already worked towards in what we've covered up to this point. We'll talk about a data collection plan, and then writing this all up for the application. And I got a message there that the sound is cutting in and out some. Is that the case or is that a general problem? Are you losing information? I'm seeing a couple of things there. It's gotten better. So it could be our connection out. If things are getting a little difficult, you can go try to dial in. We do have a few folks dialed in to the webinar through our toll-free 877 number if it's not working very well. So I'm seeing it kind of both in our building and out. We have a little bit of a problem. Check my connections to make sure I'm not causing any of that problem. It looks like on my side the technical looks okay, so we'll try going ahead. If it gets any worse, please alert me, and if you have to go to the toll-free number, please do that to make sure you get the information. Okay. So forming the evaluation, part 1 that we have in the process. And some of these things, as I mentioned, you have already made progress on as you have developed the proposal and may be starting in on the application that of some of the subjects that we covered last week. So identifying needs, that's how you got to the program that you are looking to work to your application, and documenting the context. You've been working on that as well, how that fits into your community, to your library, your jurisdiction. We'll talk a little bit more about available resources and programming strategies. So here's a few things here. You took a look at how you knew there was a need and how it fits into your the LSTA goals or to your library's goals and planning documents. Available resources. Important to look at what resources already exist. Probably have been checking some of that off if you haven't actually written it down. Probably have already been going through some of those things in your head to see what the intersection is of what you have available in your own jurisdiction, in your own library, if there are partners or other community resources to use, and what you will need to add, especially that would come through in the application and into the budget. Program strategies, program activities. So let's take a look at an example here, putting those items that are in part 1 of the outcome-based evaluation, the need. Seniors in the community have been requesting web skills information. We've been able to see an uptick in individuals coming into the library knowing that we have some computers for public use and looking for assistance in being able to develop basic skills in using the web and its resources. And I've gotten some target population information already. Context, I've gone through, taken a look at the LSTA plan, know where I want to put that, and I do know where it fits into my strategic plan for my library. So resources, now I'm up to, okay, I started thinking about resources. I know I'm going to need some things. I want to take a look and see what do I have in my collection. Are there some hard copy? We have some of those independent individuals that just, give me a book, give me something, I want to try and figure it out myself. So I want to have some of those things, make sure I have some recent stuff on hand for that. Also, want to have just a good think about, is my staff ready to handle this? Do they have the training? If we roll out some programs, are they ready to go? Do I have one person just dying to do this? Or are they going to need some training in order to pull this off as well? And what's going on in my community? Are there other locations that I might partner with or work in conjunction with as far as at least providing information back and forth? Is the Senior Center offering some classes? What kind of classes are they offering? Are there things at the community college that we want to connect with? So take a look not only at what you have in your particular building, but what's outside the walls that could be important not only for the project, but for the people that you are looking to serve in the project. Now, the program activities, what am I thinking about doing? I kind of have to know what I'm doing so I know what I'm going to evaluate. So I'm going to look at some of these. I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to do some classes. I'm going to do some collection development. I know I have a few of my independent-minded folks. They're going to want to, they might want that Internet for Dummies. They might want some other how-to books and see about plowing through it themselves. But I know the classes, to have in-person classes is really going to work with some of the people I've already spoken with that have come into the library. So, we kind of looked at step 1, step 2, goals and objectives. This is a relook at what we have been talking about in the last workshop, the last webinar, goals and benefits, objectives, activities, and help here. This is where we're going to be able to start generating evaluation questions and selecting some measures and outcomes. And just as the general refresher, goals are those big picture things that you will identify those in your abstract. Some of those come into your need where you want to improve something, you want to address an issue, and you want to make a change to benefit the change to the individuals that are in your target population. Objectives, definitely more specific, action event oriented, related to that goal. So let's go through my example. We got that web literacy for seniors. We want to enhance web literacy among seniors in the community. So that's a really big goal. And that's what we're looking at, the big picture. We are looking at a defined project, but that's the big picture that we want to make a difference in that area. The objectives, activities, the action-based things I'm looking at doing, informational classes. Maybe I'll consider some one-on-one training. I'm not sure, but that's one thing I'm going to be considering as I'm developing this application. Looking at expanding resources, and yeah, I know there are a few other things going on out there in the community, and I do want to connect with those. One, I know this is a short-term project. I may be able to continue this on as a viable part, continuing after the grant project. Maybe it's not something the library will continue on, but I want to be able to establish connections with those I already know and that are in the community that might be able to work with this program, especially after our funding has completed. So, looking for generating outcomes. Outcomes are telling us an impact on an end user or target population of persons that you are trying to make a difference with. Now, impacts in the broad spectrum include behavior, making a change in behavior, attitude, skill, knowledge, or condition and status. You can see the little inset definition here, that outcome evaluation. One of the good definitions is a user-centered approach to assessment of programs, services that have been designed to achieve a change for the user. Now, look back that this is a short-term project. So some of the items that are under the impact work better with short-term as opposed to if you have the opportunity to work in a long-term longitudinal type study. You can look at some other things, but for our short-term, skills and knowledge, 3 and 4 usually jump out at the ones that I will suggest that you look at first to incorporate into an outcome that you want to use for your application. Behaviors, conditions, and status, those are a little harder to measure, take more effort. We're not looking to drive you crazy in getting at one good outcome for your project. Attitudes sometimes can work in a short-term funding program. It all depends on the attitude, type of attitude that you're looking at. So those 3 in the middle are the most likely areas that you will find something to use for your outcome. So for selecting the outcome, you want to identify your intended participants. Now this is a little bit more than just your broad program. If you are working with a project that is potentially going to reach a larger body of individuals in your community, what might work best in setting up your outcome-based evaluation is to pick a subset of that group. Sometimes that subset are the individuals that come into the library for a certain type of program. You may have multiple things going on, and you pick one part of your project to use to find an outcome that you can measure and get good information about. So we are just looking for, as I said, they're picking one good outcome. You're looking for the participants to identify if they've learned a new skill, picked up some new knowledge, potentially had an improvement in attitude or a change in attitude. Behavior, a little tough again. So you want to look at what you can measure and what can be done in short term of the time that we have for the grant. Take a look at what the library may already collect in program or other kinds of data, potentially from your ILS for collection development and other information related to that. That can give you a baseline or the foundation. And having a foundation of information can help you show where a difference has occurred if you compare that from the start of the program to the end of the program. So the outcome itself, when you're trying to frame an outcome statement, it is definitely about the user. These are suggestions here in language, things that can help you move toward a good, solid outcome. Often it is great to start with the target, identifying the target group at the beginning of the sentence. It doesn't have to be, but can be embedded in the sentence. Verbs that work well in outcomes that are often shown, that show up in outcome statements include these that are listed here. This is not an exhaustive list, but this can help get you started if you're trying to frame a statement. They are not specifically activity-based. Activity-based gets us towards where we're all comfortable is counting things. We're very comfortable with gate counts. We're very comfortable with the number of circulation, or how many people have participated in a program. Not that we don't want those that part of that information in the overall evaluation, but for the purpose of the outcome, it's not specifically designed to count things such as activities. So when you're looking at your outcome statement, you want to look at, is it specific? And we are fine, I am fine with very specific items that you are going to measure because, again, short-term programs just don't allow us to do a lot more than a few items here. Also, you want to make sure that although you keep output statements and program operations as part of the whole review of the project, it's not part of your outcome statement. So let's look back. My overall outcome for seniors in web literacy is I want seniors of the community to be able to gain web skills to access the internet with ease. So I'm looking at, I'm decided, I'm going to, for the purpose of the outcome, I'm going to focus on the programs that I want to roll out. I'm going to have other things going on. I'm going to buy additional materials. I might have a few presentations, and I'll keep track of all that information. But for the purpose of the outcome, I'm going to focus on the workshop that's designed to teach online skills to seniors. The outcome I'm looking at is to see that the seniors who take the workshop will learn basic internet navigation skills. So out of all of the seniors in the community, and maybe some of the outreach and informational programs I will be doing, I am going to bring this down to something manageable. I'm going to pick just the seniors that come in and take the workshops that I'm going to roll out as part of my project. So with data collection, what I'm going to be looking at again is designing the plan, and that's the purpose of having emphasis on this at the beginning, is to get that plan set up and rolled into your timeline, rolled into the project as it's going to be occurring. So it is just a natural part of the activity and not something that happens when you get to the end of the time frame, when we're getting to May and June. It's like, oh, I did my project, and it's like, oh, now I got to evaluate it. If you get the plan set up, rolled into your timeline, this will be, you'll have that information ready to go and won't be scrambling at the end. So you're looking for practical methods, setting up your schedule, targets change. Take a look at what the best way to capture your information. So remember your goal, go for the most direct, and then considering what exists, just like we were looking at resources. Now, your schedule could be a couple of different ways. You may be keeping information that's time-based, and by that I mean you will be looking at, you have weekly programs, so you're going to, or some kind of weekly data gathering, you'll capture your data weekly, or maybe monthly. So you may have information gathered at that point. You may find it better to have it more event-based, such as working around a program that you will have at the library. So it might be based on an event, might be based on just a rollout of time. Depends on the project that you're doing. Consider if you're going to be using patron input. Patron input is voluntary, and depending on the level of data that you keep, you might have to consider some privacy or confidentiality. And there are costs to doing evaluation. Certain amount of costs if you need supplies. You can write something into the application itself, but there is a cost to doing evaluation, even if it's just in your time. So that's why we are looking to keep this at a manageable level. So where do we find the stuff that we already have? Kind of touched on some of these. Your circulation system, you might have information about registrations, a circulation of types of information, the types of reference stats that are coming in. That's how I started formulating this in the first place. The information, we were getting inquiries at the information and reference point of our building to about having web-based information, a program about accessing web-based information for some of our seniors. So some of this has already helped me formulate my program. Web hits, that could be a place depending on your project. Library resources, print, electronic, usage of some of that information. Modifications, if you have plan to use such as circulation data, or if you're going to use registration information to show you've reached out to a target population and you've gotten a lot of requests for library cards, people signing up. As a matter of fact, I'll take a point at this here, just a little sidebar. That is actually one very good outcome that you can generate where you have gone to reach out to a particular target population, and individuals have not been library users and have become library users. This is one of the things that falls into that behavior classification for outcomes, where the target population weren't library users, have become library users. And to really emphasize the change in behavior of becoming library users, if they get a library card, and then if you are able to modify, do a short-term item in your circulation system where you can track and say, okay, people with this code, they not only got a library card, but they used it within the program time. Some of these temporary things that can help as far as track people that were part of programs that have used services, have gotten library cards. If you can put those into your integrated library system, even if it's temporarily. That can help get some very strong evaluation information for you. This is where you may have to loop back, talk to your technical people, the people that are in technical services, deal with your search system to see what's necessary, what you might have to do to get this started so you're not scrambling at the last minute. Okay, talk about a few other things, ways to get information. You can use methods, the method of surveys. Surveys can be very useful if you have to understand that you are getting it from the participant's perspective. They can be rather subjective if you don't have some very specific questions. If you have a lot of just open-ended things, such as, have you learned a new skill? They may not speak the same language that we do. It may not be coming from the understanding of what in the world a skill or an attitude or behavior is. So if you ask that kind of question in a survey, you may not get very good information. You may not get responses at all. So you do have to be careful how you craft the surveys so you do get valid results or information that you can use. And remember, surveys are self-administered. They can be easy to analyze. You can just zip through the survey, take a look at the response to the questions that you've gotten. You need to make sure when you're setting up your surveys that you are giving them neutral questions. You're not leading them down a particular path. And then you can get some very valid data. And again, I kind of mentioned you need to make the questions understandable. They won't understand necessarily what a library skill is, but you can ask them if they've learned how to access a particular program in the library, if they've been able to sign on to the online databases or something of that sort. You might want to pilot test this on, and I'm never shy. I've used family, friends, neighbors to take a look at something that don't have a connection to libraries like I do, to take a look at a questionnaire to see if it makes sense to them and see how they are perceiving the question. Interviews. Not used a lot, but sometimes it can be the best way to get the type of information that will support your project. Again, the information is definitely from the participant's perspective. You do have predefined questions, but what's nice is that you can get clarifications through follow-ups. So if someone doesn't understand a question, they can ask you what you mean by it, so you can make sure they do answer the question that you're asking. If they give very short answers or something that doesn't seem complete as an interviewer, you can follow up. Anecdotes are possible. They are possible in the just written survey as well. And at this point in time, anecdotes do have a place in the evaluation information that we send forward to the federal level. Interviews can be labor intensive. This is one of the things where you do need to count the cost of what it will be for you to roll this out if you are going to be reaching out to more than just a few individuals. And then you have to be ready to find out if individuals are going to be ready to participate, if they're going to be at ease enough to share information with you. So self-reports, they're best for objective items. Will the participant respond? You do need to watch for accuracy. Another approach is observation. Have to be careful with observation. It can work really well if you're looking for changes in behavior. Possibly it can work well with children's programs, but it doesn't allow you to ask direct questions. An observer may need to have training, so this could be something that you need to consider if there's time or if there's funding that's going to be required for an observer. And you have to be careful with privacy. Sometimes this can have a creepy factor as well if people are concerned about being observed. One of the things that can work really well for short-term projects, and again, if it fits to the type of program that you're setting up, is to actually use a test, a pre-test, post-test type of thing. It doesn't always have to be a pre and post test, but that can also assess very well where you're starting from and the difference you've made by the end of the program or the project. I mentioned great for knowledge and skills. It works really well in a class, workshop, institute type setting. That's something that already exists. I am very much a proponent of looking to see if there's something to adapt to your particular program instead of having to create it from the ground up. The pre-test and post-test are connected, so most of the time there's very little difference between the two. Great and are very easy to analyze and usually are very credible as long as you have developed your questions well. And again, you do have to do this beforehand, but once you have it set up, if you have this all set up beforehand, you have a big head start on your evaluation. Target for change. So this is where you're adding in so you will know you've made a difference. So you're looking for something usually numerical. I'll have an example of this here in the next screen. Something reasonable, again, in the time frame that you're working with. We all like to consider that when we are rolling out something that we see as important to us, that everybody's going to love it and everybody's going to change. So we'll get 100% change of things, but that's not usually what really happens. So we need to look at what's reasonable for the project and the time frame. Talked about baselines. If you have them available, they are great. And looking at the identifying specifically a change in skill or behavior and not leaving it too open-ended. So picking one specific thing that is measurable. Back to my favorite here. How would this look with seniors and web literacy? Well, I have my method. I'm going to have them complete a search exercise. So it's kind of a test, but I don't have a pre-test, post-test. I'm just going to have a specific exercise for them to complete. They can add anecdotes. I'm going to give them a chance to say what they liked or didn't like, or if there was an aha moment that they want to share. My schedule for this is it's going to be event-based. I'm going to put this, attach this with my workshops, and this is for my outcome statement. I'm going to attach it to my workshop for seniors, and I'm going to have 3 workshops. So my target for change is that I am looking at 75% of the participants of the workshop, not everyone in the community, it's just the workshop, will be able to activate a search engine, enter a topic, and print an example for the trainer. So that's the search exercise that I'm looking for. And I'm planning to reach 60 seniors, 20 seniors per class. So 75% of those participants will be able to show that they have had an improvement in their skills or knowledge of the web. And there I am at an outcome that I can use. Now I'm still going to be keeping other information. I'm going to identify how many books that I've gotten. I'm going to see if I can get into the ILS system where I can have a temporary tag on those new items so I can keep track of how many of those have circulated during that time. I've already decided, the best way so I can get my 60 seniors in, I'm going to go out to several different clubs, the senior center, and make some presentations, maybe do a quick demonstration. I'm going to keep track of how many of those I do. I'm going to keep track of who comes to those. And that's great information, but my outcome is going to be based on the workshops that I will do at the library. I have a duplicate slide. So let's go on. So writing it up, we're looking at using all the information that we have put together in steps 1 through 3, and we will start at the beginning with that need. So I'm going to identify my target population, identify my seniors. I'm going to identify the need that I've indicated. It wraps back to my goal and the benefits that I have already spoken about. And I'm going to integrate that into the implementation. So when I'm writing this up, it will not only be in the evaluation section, some of the evaluation components will show up in the implementation and the timeline that we'll be talking about next week. And I'm going to assign responsibility. Now in smaller groups, or if I'm going to be the one person making this program happen, whether or not I am in a one-person library or a larger organization, it may be just you as the project manager, or there may be other individuals that will be important in gathering this information. And it's good to identify that at the outset. And target population. So for the application, you want to get the results you expect. That comes back to, for the outcome, I'm looking for 75% of the participants at the class will be able to show an improvement in skills. I'm going to be using, in my case, the data collection method. For the outcome will be that searching exercise. I'll be collecting some additional information, but I'm going to be clear about what I'm collecting for the outcome and where the records, what's kept and who's responsible, and when the evaluation will take place, whether it's event-based or whether it's over a sequence of time. So, a few other things. Evaluate the whole project, as I've been mentioning. We want to see those outputs. I want to see the information. If you're having multiple programs or doing multiple presentations, definitely would love to see that. Doing some collection development as related to a program, yes. You need to know how many items you purchased. If you have gone to added some online subscriptions or some web-based information, definitely want to know that. And maybe, web hits on that, number of books circulated. But that gives you the complete picture of the project. But that's in addition to the one outcome that you will be providing in the application. And using your best estimates for the target. I think we covered that. So, writing that up in the final report, you're looking for interpreting the data and looking for patterns. And I put in remembering the project goals. This does come back, and goal and benefits. It comes back to a number of our reviewers in the last round for the 2014 grant were specifically looking at the goals and even more specifically looking at the benefits that were identified in the application and seeing if there's a link to what the outcome or the evaluation was looking to highlight. And we did have some disconnects where there were some wonderful benefits that were being listed, and some of them because we're looking at a long-term benefit, but then there was absolutely no link to those benefits in the evaluation, and that those came up. We had a few reviewers that were looking very carefully at the link between the benefits that were in that section and what was being evaluated and what was showing also up in the implementation. Okay, when you're writing up at the back end, when you're doing your final report, we are fine with you listing some unintended consequences. Sometimes those are unintended bonuses, good things, or sometimes it's like, well, I plan to do this and reach out to this group of teams, and I had no idea that they wouldn't respond to X, Y, and Z. So it's fine to keep track of information that has impacted your project. Obstacles, as I mentioned, if something has come up, if you had a change in a partner that was gung-ho at the start, and once you actually started to try to roll things out, suddenly they weren't there for you as much as had been planned. Definitely, those type of things happen. You could have changes in personnel where the one person who you were working with was on board with it. A new person comes in and not so on board with it. So when you're writing up at the back end, tell us about those obstacles. Do want to know about communication aspects that relate to your evaluation, reaching out to your target audience, how they responded, and identifying if you really did reach your goal. So those items listed above can identify what were some impacts on you as the project manager that made a difference as to whether you were able to show a success in your project to the level that you wanted. And in the final analysis, also, if there's some next steps, are you going to be able to roll this program forward? Or maybe not. But sometimes there's reasons that something is not successful and it's not for your community. That can be something that you tell us at the back end. So we are getting to wrapping up for the day, and I don't think I mentioned at the start of the program, I do like to try to set these up so they are just under an hour, and we haven't really had too many questions, so we've been easily able to keep to that time frame. So we did have a quick overview of the LSTA program in Nevada, talked about where we've been in webinar 1 and the application. Today, specifically, we're talking about evaluation and the critical aspect it has, not only in the individual program, but in the larger process for the grants to the states program. The evaluation information that comes in and that is reported at the final point of a federal grant year is data mined pretty heavily. The information is available to the American Library Association, which is one of the best supporters of this particular program when it comes up for review as part of the budget on Capitol Hill. Also, reports are generated by the Institute, by IMLS, to the offices on the Capitol that are specific to congressional districts. So individual legislators do know what's going on in their state, specifically from the funding, and it is gleaned from this information. So that's why we do spend a fair amount of time on it, because we think this is a great funding program, and we want to keep that information out there that shows what a difference this money makes, not only on the state level, but on the local level as well. So back to the outcome-based evaluation, the 4 steps we went over: forming the evaluation, defining your goals and objectives, making sure those benefits that we talked about in the other parts of the application show up in the evaluation, your data collection plan and how to write that up using your target population, target group in your statement, and using specific measurable items that will come across in the outcome statement. And not only the outcome, but we went over some of the general evaluation things that you will be putting into a project, and we want to know about those as well. So I'm at a questions landing page. If you have any questions now, if you're new to outcome-based evaluation or just haven't touched on it for a little while, I am happy to assist you with working through some of these concepts and getting them in, moving from the outputs that we're also comfortable with into the outcome or the impact, the difference and change that we can make. And sometimes there's a lot we can do with the things that we're already comfortable keeping as information. Okay, we might be getting a question in here. Just same that we had before. I am your primary contact information, and we are getting close to about a month away from when the applications will be due. That'll be November 12th. I expect to be available throughout these next several weeks to be able to help you work through or answer any questions that you have. And no, actually, I don't see a question at this point. And my ever popular, ever favorite, giving credit, IMLS loves to have. Oh, thank you from Elko. copies of the handout. Just on our website, I do now have a webinar section under the 2015 grant information. You may have to scroll down, it's at the bottom. So what I have there, I have the anyone who's doing work with collection development, there's a collection development handout there. I do have a scan of the slides from webinar 1. That's there. I have sent out also, for those who have requested it, the link to our YouTube channel, the NSLA YouTube channel that has an LSTA section with our webinar 1 is posted there. The other thing that's posted on the regular 2015 grant website is the certification form. So if you use the archived webinar and you weren't able to participate in one of the live ones or miss some of it, you can use that certification page. It does need to be sent in to me so I can give you credit for participation. And of course, I don't have a calendar right here in front of me, but November 12th should be a Wednesday. So, well, I can pull up the calendar, but November 12th should be the Wednesday in November. The 13th was, we did, I think one version went out, I think with proposals where we had the 13th. Everything that is now available on the website, on the applications, and in the application instructions should be the 12th. Anyway, I can verify if there's any concern on that, and I can't get that to change. Okay. Okay, Donnie, let's see. So I think at this point I have come to the end of the content that I have for today, and I want to thank you all. Glad to see you on board. If you have any questions, again, as I started on before, don't hesitate to ask. Just because the webinar has ended doesn't mean that your chance to ask questions has ended. So please feel free to contact me. Phone, email, best ways to get my attention. And at that point, again, I want to thank you all for participating, and we'll see you next week for our final webinar, number 3. Thank you all.